The one to be on as we mark your card on the weekend's racing.
This is Blazing Saddles on Sky Sports News Radio.
The novices take centre stage on this week's Blazing Saddles.
Here comes Minella Class, who settled the race with a decent turn of foot, turning in to the second last, and he comes home to win well in the end.
The Tolworth Hurdle is the feature on Sandown's card. And there's prize money right across the board with valuable contests for the stayers.
Because Nick Toto Beauchesne has jumped them silly throughout this and comes home to win it well in the end.
And also the speedsters.
And Corliss is going to be too good and returns to form in style.
We'll be joined by trainers Venetia Williams and Charlie Longsdon, so don't start your racing weekend without us.
This is Blazing Saddles.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. My name's Ian Brindle. I'm delighted to say that in the studio with me today are Ian Ogg and Paul Thompson. Well, let's crack on, lads, with the racing. The Tolworth Hurdle is the highlight of the day at Sandown Park, and it's a race that's been particularly good for Paul Nicholls, as the Ditcheek Maestro has saddled 4 winners of this race in the past, and Prospect Wells bids to add to that impressive record.
Prospect Wells has lost a bit of concentration up the run-in, but that takes very little away from another economical, fluent and fast hurdling display. Prospect Wells and all the aces in a really strong renewal. Carrickmorna King was third.
Some have criticised his jumping in the past, Ian. Do you think it's interesting that Connections are sticking to this trip?
There is a case for stepping him up in trip. He stayed well on the flat and he's been outpaced twice this season, arguably in the handicap hurdle at Ascot last time and in the Grade 2 novice hurdle at Cheltenham when he was beaten by Steps of Freedom. But I think it makes sense. They seem to be going down the route of the Supreme. He is improving with experience, and this is going to be pretty demanding. Even if it's sort of good to soft at Sandown, it still tends to be pretty testing, holding ground, and with a stiff finish as well. It makes sense.
Well, among his opposition will be Magnifique Etoile, though trainer Charlie Longsdon is worried about the ground.
I wouldn't want to run him if the ground came up bottomless. He does quite a light framed horse. He's got a lot of growing and strengthening up to do. So, if the ground's not too soft, we will run him. He's won a middle-of-the-road bumper very easily and 2 middle-of-the-road hurdles without even coming off the bridle. So, massive step up in grade, but it's that time we took that step up in grade.
Well, Charlie's obviously been furiously checking the weather, Paul. Do you think he was right to take his chance?
Yes, I do. I mean, he needs to test the horse at a higher level now. As we heard Charlie saying then, he's been competing at a lower grade. Magnifique Etoile has done absolutely nothing wrong yet, opening his account for the season in the Market Raisin Bumper. That was back in September, and subsequently he scored on both attempts over Timber at Stratford and Bangor. But on both occasions, I saw both races, he did make slight mistakes at the business end, so he just needs to brush up on his jumping, which I'm sure he will do as he gains experience, and he could be a lot better than his current rating of 136.
Well, Colour Squadron has won on 2 of his racecourse appearances thus far, and he made all to win at Newbury.
Colour Squadron very gamely inside the final furlong, hanging on grimly. Colour Squadron makes all and beats Montbaison. And again, these two are quite clear of the others.
He's looked a high-class recruit, Ian. Is he very much on your radar?
Yeah, he has to be. His form stacks up at all levels, getting the better of Montbaison last time, who's highly rated by Alan King, finishing a long way clear of the third, who was disappointing. He didn't run up to the form of his hurdling debut at Cheltenham. But Colour Squadron, he's, to use a hackneyed phrase, he has done everything right so far. He does look like more of a sort of a grinding stayer to me, a real sort of a galloping type, and that'd be a slight concern for me over this trip, even allowing for the for the testing conditions, whether something might just have a little bit too much speed for him here. But he's a very exciting prospect.
Well, the race reopened at the 6-day stage, and Nicky Henderson for a real spanner in the works with Captain Conan. We haven't seen him in Britain, Paul, but what do we know about him?
He's a 5-year-old, and 5-year-olds have a 50% strike rate in the past 10 years in the Tolworth, so he's certainly the right age, and lines up on his debut for the yard, having scored at Auteuil back in June. That's what we know about him. Nicky Henderson won this last year with the favourite Minella Class, but he'd had a pipe opener, a winning one at Newbury the month before, so lined up fit and fancied. With this fellow, well, we're guessing on both points.
Nicky Henderson described him as a very exciting prospect, but a chaser in the making in his stable. It will be interesting to see what the market makes of his chances. Whilst we undoubtedly haven't seen the best of Colour Squadron and of Magnifique Etoile, Prospect Wells sets the standard. As things stand, Paul Nicholls has a fabulous record in this race, as you've mentioned, and he's a worthy favourite, and he gets the nod. He deserves to head the market here.
I wouldn't disagree entirely with Ian. I mean, Prospect Wells bids to follow the hoof prints of Noland, one of Paul Nicholls' uprunners, and some big names have won this race in the past. But as we said earlier, Charlie Longsdon starting on the long road to what he hopes will be the top with Magnifique Etoile. So I'm going to stick my neck out and go for Charlie Longsdon's 5-year-old.
Well, stay with us as we'll be chatting to Grand National winning trainer Venetia Williams next on Blazing Saddles.
This is Sky Sports News Radio.
Two handicaps sandwich the Tolworth, and the first of which is the 32 red handicap chase. 9 are set to face a starter, and among the market leaders is Ryliev from the Venetia Williams stable. I caught up with a trainer a little earlier and put it to her that he's had a 2011 to remember.
Oh, he's a star, yes, but a lot of the early wins were due to the fact that he'd actually disappointed in the earlier part of his career. So in fact he started his winning off a pretty lowly mark, but it's been quite a rise for him just in this season alone, and just got pipped at Cheltenham last time.
Yeah, and how did he come out of that run at Cheltenham?
Yeah, fine. I mean, he's a lovely horse to train. You know, he's not over big, but you know, he does his work well, and you know, he's a great trier as well. He's got the 8 rivals to worry about in this race, Venetia. Which are you perhaps most worried about? Well, it's a competitive race throughout, but I think All for Free has been progressing pretty well in his last couple of runs, and you know, he's the youngest horse in the field at 6, so you know, when they're still young, you don't know how far their progression is going to continue, so I think, you know, he's probably one to look out for. Venetia Williams there, and Ian, the yard couldn't be heading into this in better form.
The horses certainly seem to be in rude health. The actual figures that the stable returned for December weren't up there with the sort of winters that we expect for the stable, but perhaps they're missing one or two leading lights, and certainly a good start to January with 2 winners on the board from just the 13 runners already. As you say, Ryliev has certainly been doing his bit for the yard. My slight concern with him is his jumping. He's not always the quickest. I thought he was a little bit better at Ascot on his penultimate start, but as we heard, he's not very big, and I don't think he's the quickest through the air or away from his fences. He just seems to lose a bit of momentum. And the railway fences on the far side of the track at Sandown come thick and fast. It's bang, bang, bang. And I just think that his fencing could hold him back there against some slicker rivals, and that would be my concern with his chances.
Well, we spoke to Martin Keefe last week on the programme. He's represented by All for Free on a hat-trick, and Venetia Williams there clearly a little bit worried about him.
Yes, because as she pointed out, he's only a 6-year-old, so he's the youngster in the lineup, and he was rated as high as 132 over hurdles, Ian, so appears to have a lot more to offer over fences off his current mark. He ran off 110 at Ascot in December, the first of his 2 wins, and then defied a £7 rise at Ludlow. This will obviously be a lot harder being at Sandown, but he does go well right-handed, and I think the 6-year-old is worth a go at this class too.
Henderson saddling 2 in the race in Tax for That and Dave's Dream, and both here know how to win around here.
Well, they do, although their wins here both came over hurdles. Tanks for That picked up a novice hurdle early in his career, while Dave's Dream impressively won an Imperial Cup in taking fashion from a pipe gamble, I think I recall. So they've got to do it over fences, and both come here having failed to complete at Cheltenham last time. I think they both have a good deal more to offer over fences. They've got very different profiles, and at Dave's Dream they thought the world of him, and he hasn't lived up to expectations. Whereas Tanks for That, I think it seems to be getting better and better. He's 9 years old, but he seems to be in the best form of his life, and he was travelling perfectly well when falling last time.
And just a quick mention of 1 or 2 of the others in the race as well. The Chris Gordon trained 9-year-old King Edmund stayed on really well at Ascot last time, and young Tom Cannon, who can take £5 off its back, keeps the ride. The Grewcott stable represented by Pretathu. The return to fences and the minimum trip at Wetherby nearly had the desired effect last time when he finished in second place. And obviously it's Saturday, it's a decent race. You can't discount Paul Nicholls, can you? He runs hold fast, and 8-year-olds do have a good record in this race, but it does look held by Ryliev on earlier running at Newbury. We heard Ian mention Ryliev earlier. I actually backed him in the Jenny Mould at Cheltenham, and he was beaten ahead at 10-1 by Astracad, so that was a decent performance.
Be prepared to give another chance to Dave Stream. They're trying to change the tactics with him at Cheltenham last time when he came down, and that appeared to be having a positive effect, and I think in a competitive race he's worth chancing at the prices.
This
is Sky Sports News Radio.
We'll be previewing the big handicap chase in just a moment, but if a week's a long time in politics, it scarcely scratches the surface as far as racing is concerned. Here's a quick-fire look at what we learned this week. Cheltenham may be 2 months away, but the anti-post markets have had plenty of life breathed into them over the last week. Oscar Whiskey stuck on stoically up the Cheltenham Hill to serve warning to big bucks.
Poongatcher's chased him valiantly all the way to the line, but back-to-back successes in this race for Oscar Whiskey, and he did it without really breaking sweat.
Alan King has started to unveil what appears to be a very strong hand in the Triumph.
Grametti from the Alan King stable. Wayne Hutchinson, he's streaking away from a good field here. This is a nice performance. Grametti, number 13, wins and wins well.
Owner John Hales has entered Alpha Off for the champion chase as well as the Arkle.
Alpha Off pulling out a bit more for Non-Stop to within half a length. Alpha Off for Non-Stop, to the line they go. Alpha Off bravely held on and wins the Henry VIII.
Last year's Supreme Novices Hurdle winner is set to go for the Victor Chandler at Ascot later in the month. One horse that still appears to be Arkle bound is Peddler's Cross.
Sprinter Sacra, 2 out of 2 over fences. Peddler's Cross was in second.
Donald McCain's Charge was found to have been suffering with a muscle complaint, and a trainer has confirmed that plans to the Arkle are very much back on. It's all systems go for Fingal Bay after a comprehensive victory in the Shallow.
The 16th consecutive century of winners for Richard Johnson lands the Shallow Hurdle on Fingal Bay. For Philip Hobbs in second place, Ballyrock.
The Neptune is next stop at the festival. Not taking their chances this year will be former champion hurdler Punjabi and leading Irish chaser John Cole, who are both injured and out for the season. But back on track are Burton Port, second in the 2010 Hennessy, and Barber's Shop, who could go for the Fox Hunters. Hurricane Fly, who missed the Isterbrack hurdle over Christmas, may well be back by the end of the month, but only when Willie Mullins is entirely satisfied with him.
This
is Sky Sports News
Radio.
Coming up next, we'll be looking ahead to the feature handicap of the day here on Blazing Saddles.
This is Blazing Saddles.
The 32red.com handicap chase has drawn 10 entries this weekend, and the weights for the race are headed by the former Punchestown Gold Cup winner, Neptune Collonge. This looks to be an ultra-competitive renewal, and among the interesting participants is Hold On Julio, who was a prolific winner between the flags and destroyed a decent field at the course in November.
Hold On Julio, the quicker through the air, and comes away from the fence with the momentum and stays on to go clear up the Sandown Hill. Earth Planet is chasing, but he's chasing in vain.
He'll have to race from £4 out the handicap, though Wayne Hutchinson told our colleagues at sportinglife.com that he's looking forward to the mount.
Yeah, obviously took a hike in the weights, sat on him yesterday morning, scored over 6 fences. He seems in good nick in himself. He's got the hike in the weights to sort of justify, but he was a good winner. He's pleased to sit home in his work, and it's a nice pot to have a go at.
Ian, he showed nothing as a 5-year-old for previous connections, but he's really caught the eye since returning back to racing on the rules.
He's only had the one start for Alan King when dotting up over course and distance. He won by 11 lengths that day. He's gone up by £13. He beat exposed horses, but he beat them very well. The fact that he has been kept off since sort of rather suggests that Connections might have had this race in mind, a valuable prize over the same course and distance. It would appear to hold water, that argument, and getting weight from his rivals here. He's a very interesting contender.
Well, looking at those top weights, Paul, there certainly seems to be an element of quality about them.
Definitely, including Nicky Henderson's Master of the Hall, who caught the eye at Ascot last season. He won a beginner's chase, but more importantly, the Grade 2 Reynoldstown, with subsequent winners such as the Minack and Billy McGurn behind. He then went on to be a creditable sixth in the RSA chase at the Cheltenham Festival. Came back with a bang at Aintree last month, I thought, beating Tamarin Blur by 16 lengths no less, and the latter's come out to boost the form, of course, at Haydock last week, so he looks the one that they all have to beat on his handicap debut. And the other ones at the top of the weights there include Neptune Collange, who's got top weight of 11 stone 12. On the line through the Minack, though, he does look held by Master of the Hall for me, Neptune Collange, but of course he's trained by Paul Nicholls, so you can't totally discount him. And Wymot, of course, has lived in the shadow of Pedlar's Cross somewhat in the past, a promising stayer when conditions are in his favour, but the ground was just too testing when he led his supporters down in the Tommy Riddle at Haydock, so I think we can expect a better run from Wymot, who's had 3 weeks to recover.
Charlie Longsdon is represented by Killimar, and he's on a recovery mission, having unseated last time out.
I was very disappointed with how sloppy his jumping was at Haydock, and he unseated the young rider. We might put some blinkers on him this time just to sharpen him up. And yeah, hopefully that'll work the Oracle. He's well able to go and win those sort of races. He's got plenty of talent, and I think as a cross he can run very well.
Ian, can he get back to winning ways, or does this look a big ask?
Personally, I think it's a big ask for him. He's more exposed than one or two of these in this field. And although he hasn't had all that much racing for Charlie Longsdon, who might be able to get a little bit more out of him, I'm not convinced by that argument, and I'd prefer to look elsewhere.
Yep, so a very competitive race. I'll come to yourself, Paul. What do you fancy for it?
Definitely Master of the Hall. I think he's done absolutely nothing wrong. He's showed he's fit. He'll be fancied as well, Master of the Hall. And I'd be looking at him as well to maybe taking a decent race at the Cheltenham Festival after this.
Well, I think probably hold on Julio, but the Knoxes is well worth a mention for Paul Nicholls. He is racing from an £11 lower chasing mark than his handicap mark over hurdles. So immediately he looks well handicapped on that basis. He's won 2 of his 4 starts over chases. He won his last 2. This is his first run over the bigger obstacles for Paul Nicholls. It wouldn't be the biggest surprise if he improved on the chase form that he's shown to date, and he's potentially very well handicapped. I think that, however, will be reflected in his price and therefore preferences for the Alan King runner.
This is Sky Sports News Radio.
Well, thanks for that, guys. That wraps up another Blazing Saddles. Next week we will be heading to Warwick as the Midlands track hosts its biggest race of the year with the Classic Chase, and we're also taking in the card at Kempton, where the highlight is the Lanzarote Hurdle.